Wait, why is Bruno Mars standing behind me? Marcus heard someone whisper, but before he could turn around, the first sharp beat of Finesse exploded through the speakers, and the entire room erupted into screams. Marcus froze for half a second, one hand suspended in the air, his body caught between the dance move he had practiced for months and the sudden realization that something completely impossible was happening behind him. He had been dancing alone near the edge of the stage, wearing a faded black jacket, white sneakers, and a ridiculous amount of confidence that had somehow survived the humiliation of being laughed at by his friends earlier that evening. The venue lights swept across the crowd, painting thousands of faces in gold and violet, while the unmistakable rhythm of Finesse rolled through the floor like a wave. Marcus had not expected anyone important to notice him. He had certainly never imagined Bruno Mars would be standing only a few feet away. He turned slowly. Bruno was there, not on a giant screen, not on a poster, not at the center of the stage with an entire production crew surrounding him. He was simply standing there in a dark suit, microphone in one hand, watching Marcus with an expression that seemed caught somewhere between amusement and genuine surprise. For a moment, neither man moved. Then Bruno raised one eyebrow. "You gonna finish that move?" The crowd screamed so loudly that Marcus could barely hear him. His mouth fell open. "What?" Bruno looked. "You heard me." Marcus looked at the audience, then back at Bruno. His heart hammered against his ribs. Every instinct told him to disappear. Instead, the beat continued, and something inside him refused to run. Marcus lifted his shoulders, stepped backward, and finished the choreography. The audience erupted again. Bruno watched carefully, nodding to the rhythm. Marcus had spent years dancing when nobody was watching. That had always been the point. Dancing had been the one place where he could forget the anxiety that followed him everywhere. The memories of his father telling him that dancing was childish, the embarrassment of being the only boy in his neighborhood who had chosen rhythm over football, the countless evenings when he practiced alone in a cramped apartment while the city outside his window remained indifferent. But tonight, for the first time, someone was watching who understood what it meant to perform. Bruno stepped closer. "Okay," he said, grinning. "Now show me what you were really doing." Marcus swallowed. "I was just having fun." "Good," Bruno replied. "Then don't stop." The music seemed to grow louder. Marcus closed his eyes for one breath. He remembered every night he had practiced the same sequence until his knees hurt. He remembered his mother sitting silently on the couch, smiling whenever he danced. He remembered the first time he had watched Bruno perform and felt something shift inside him. It had not been fame that fascinated Marcus. It had been freedom. Bruno moved as if the music belonged to him, but somehow made everyone else feel as though they belonged inside it too. Marcus opened his eyes and danced. This time he stopped thinking. His feet moved automatically, sliding across the polished floor, his shoulders snapping precisely with the rhythm, his hands cutting through the air. The crowd reacted to every movement. Bruno began copying him. Marcus laughed in disbelief. Bruno laughed too. For several seconds, the superstar and the unknown fan were simply two people dancing to the same song. But what Marcus did not know was that Bruno had noticed something else. Behind Marcus's confidence was hesitation. Behind his smile was fear. Bruno could see it in the tiny pauses between movements, the way Marcus glanced toward the wings whenever the lights became too bright, the way his fingers trembled whenever he stopped moving. When the song ended, Marcus bent forward, breathing hard. Bruno approached him. "What's your name?" "Marcus." "Marcus what?" Marcus hesitated. "Marcus Reed." Bruno extended his hand. "Nice to meet you, Marcus Reed." Marcus shook it. His palm was sweating. "Nice to meet you too." Bruno smiled. "You dance like somebody who's trying to prove something." The smile disappeared from Marcus's face. The sentence hit harder than the music had. "Maybe I am." Bruno studied him. "To who?" Marcus looked toward the audience. Thousands of strangers were still cheering. Yet somehow, the question made the enormous room feel silent. "My father," Marcus finally said. Bruno's expression changed. Not dramatically, just enough for Marcus to notice. "Where is he?" "He's not here." "Does he know you're dancing?" Marcus looked down. "He used to." Bruno waited. "And?" Marcus swallowed. He told me I was wasting my life. Bruno nodded slowly. That's a heavy thing to carry onto a dance floor. Marcus forced a smile. I usually leave it at home. No, Bruno said quietly. You bring it with you every time. Marcus looked at him. The crowd noise seemed distant now. Bruno placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. But tonight, you left it behind for a minute. Marcus did not know what to say. Then the band started another groove, and Bruno turned toward the stage. Come on. Marcus blinked. Where? Bruno smiled. You wanted to dance, right? Marcus followed him. The next few minutes became something neither of them could have predicted. Bruno brought Marcus onto the edge of the stage, not to embarrass him, but to let him dance with the band. The musician smiled as Marcus stepped into the light. His nerves returned immediately. The stage looked completely different from the audience. The lights were blinding. The heat from the equipment pressed against his face. Thousands of eyes were suddenly aimed directly at him. His body stiffened. Bruno noticed. He walked beside him and whispered, Don't look at them. Marcus looked confused. Then what do I look at? Listen. Marcus closed his eyes. The bass vibrated through the floor. The drums pulsed against his chest. The guitar sounded like a heartbeat. Bruno continued. Music doesn't ask you to be perfect. It only asks you to be honest. Marcus breathed in. Then he moved. The fear slowly disappeared. His feet found a rhythm. His shoulders relaxed. He spun, slid, and landed perfectly on the beat. The crowd exploded. Bruno clapped beside him, laughing. Marcus's eyes filled with tears before he could stop them. For years he had imagined this moment differently. He had imagined standing on a stage with people chanting his name. He had imagined applause. He had imagined success. He had never imagined that the first person to make him feel worthy of the stage would be the artist who had inspired him from a distance. When the performance ended, Bruno pulled him into a brief hug. You belong here. Marcus shook his head. I don't think I do. Bruno looked directly into his eyes. Then why did the stage feel different when you walked on it? Marcus had no answer. After the show, backstage smelled of sweat, coffee, warm electronics, and the faint sweetness of perfume. Marcus sat alone on a black equipment case, staring at his sneakers. His hands were still trembling. A staff member walked past and smiled. That was crazy. Marcus laughed nervously. I don't even know what happened. Neither do we, the staff member replied. Marcus smiled, but the moment passed quickly. His phone buzzed. One message. From his father. Marcus stared at the screen. He had not heard from him in months. The message contained only 4 words. I saw you dancing. Marcus's smile vanished. His fingers went cold. Another message appeared. We need to talk. Marcus locked the phone. He had spent years pretending he did not care what his father thought. Yet 4 words had brought every old wound back to the surface. He stood and walked toward an empty hallway. Bruno found him there several minutes later. You disappeared. Marcus forced a smile. Needed air. Bruno leaned against the wall. Bad news. Marcus hesitated. My father saw the performance. Bruno said nothing. Marcus laughed bitterly. I thought I wanted him to see me. And now I'm scared. Bruno nodded. That's honest. Marcus looked at him. What if he's right? Bruno's eyes narrowed slightly. About what? That this is a waste of time. That dancing won't change anything. Bruno looked down the hallway before answering. Maybe he's right about one thing. Marcus stared at him. What? Dancing won't fix everything. Marcus's heart sank. Then Bruno continued. But neither will quitting. Marcus looked away. Bruno stepped closer. Sometimes people criticize the thing they don't understand, because admitting they don't understand it makes them feel powerless. Marcus's eyes became wet again. You think that's what my father is doing? I don't know your father, Bruno said. I'm not going to pretend I do. He paused. But I know what it's like when someone tells you your dream is too ridiculous to survive. Marcus looked at him. Did someone tell you that? Bruno smiled finally. More people than you think. The conversation continued long after the venue had begun emptying. Marcus told Bruno about his childhood, about practicing choreography in secret, about his mother's encouragement, about his father's disappointment, about the first time he had performed in front of strangers and nearly walked off because his hands were shaking too badly. Bruno listened without interrupting. He never tried to turn Marcus's story into a motivational speech. he said. The applause had barely faded when Marcus realized that something was wrong. Bruno was still smiling beside him, the stage lights still burning above their heads, and thousands of voices were still echoing through the venue. But Marcus noticed a man standing at the far end of the backstage corridor who had not been there before. The man wore a dark coat despite the warm night, held no equipment, spoke to no crew member, and seemed completely uninterested in the performance that had just ended. He was simply watching Marcus. Marcus lowered his hand. "Bruno," he whispered. Bruno followed his gaze. The smile on his face disappeared. "Do you know him?" No, Bruno looked toward one of the security staff. The man in the corridor turned away immediately and disappeared through a metal door. Marcus felt a cold sensation travel down his spine. "Who was that?" Bruno asked. Marcus shook his head. "I don't know." "Then don't follow him." Marcus stared at the door. "I wasn't going to." Bruno gave him a look. "Your face says otherwise." Marcus forced a laugh, but his stomach remained tight. The night that had begun as a dream suddenly felt different. There was something in the stranger's eyes that Marcus couldn't explain. It wasn't admiration. It wasn't curiosity. It was recognition, as if the man had been waiting for him, as if he already knew something about him that Marcus didn't know himself. The backstage area slowly emptied. Musicians packed their instruments. Technicians rolled cables into cases. Staff members exchanged exhausted smiles. Marcus stood near a mirror, wiping sweat from his forehead, while Bruno changed jackets nearby. "You were different tonight," Bruno said. Marcus looked at him through the mirror. "Different how?" "More relaxed." Marcus smiled. "Maybe I'm finally getting used to this." Bruno looked softly. "Don't get too comfortable." "Why?" "Because the moment you think you've figured everything out, life usually changes the rules." Marcus turned around. "You sound like you know something." Bruno paused while adjusting his sleeve. "Maybe I do." Marcus waited. Bruno looked toward the closed backstage door. "There have been people asking questions about you." Marcus's expression changed instantly. "What kind of questions?" "Where you came from, how you met me, whether you were already connected to the production." Marcus frowned. "That's ridiculous." "I know. Who is asking?" Bruno didn't answer immediately. "That's what we're trying to find out." Marcus felt his throat tighten. "Why would anyone care about me?" Bruno looked at Cruiser. "Because sometimes people become interesting for reasons they don't understand." Marcus shook his head. "That doesn't make any sense." "It doesn't have to." Bruno placed both hands into his pockets. "Just promise me something." "What?" "If someone approaches you claiming they know me, don't trust them immediately." Marcus stared at him. "You think someone is pretending to know you?" "I'm saying be careful." Marcus nodded slowly. "Okay." They left through different exits to avoid attracting attention. Marcus walked toward the parking area with his hood pulled over his head. The night air smelled of rain and asphalt. Cars passed beyond the barricades, headlights sliding across the wet street. He reached his car, unlocked the door, and stopped. There was something tucked beneath his windshield wiper. A white envelope. Marcus stared at it. He looked around. Nobody appeared to be watching. He picked it up. There was no name, no address, nothing except a small black symbol drawn in the corner. A circle with a diagonal line through it. Marcus's heart began beating faster. He opened the envelope. Inside was a photograph. It showed him as a child. Marcus froze. The photograph was old, faded, and slightly torn along one edge. He recognized the scene immediately. It had been taken in the living room of his childhood home. He was 7 years old, standing barefoot on the carpet, dancing in front of an old television. His mother was sitting on the couch. His father was standing behind her. But there was something strange about the photograph. In the background, reflected in the television screen, stood another person. Marcus leaned closer. A tall figure. Someone he did not remember. On the back of the photograph was a handwritten sentence. "Your father was not the only person watching you." Marcus's fingers went numb. He dropped the photograph. For several seconds, he simply stood there. Then his phone rang. "Bruno." Marcus answered immediately. "Bruno, you sound scared. Someone left something on my car." "What?" "A photograph." Silence. "What photograph?" Marcus described it. Bruno's voice became serious. "Don't move. I'm already outside. Go back inside." What? Marcus, listen to me. Go back inside now. Marcus looked toward the venue entrance. The security doors were still open. He walked quickly. What is happening? Bruno asked. I don't know. Did the photograph have anything written on it? Yes. Marcus repeated the message. Bruno went completely silent. Bruno? I'm here. His voice sounded different. I need you to tell me exactly what the symbol looked like. Marcus described it. Bruno took a breath. I know that symbol. Marcus stopped walking. From where? I don't want to talk about this over the phone. Then tell me. Not here. Why? Because if someone left that photograph for you, they want you to find something. Marcus looked back toward the parking lot. Find what? The truth. The call ended. Marcus stood beneath the fluorescent lights of the venue entrance, unable to move. A security guard noticed his expression and approached. Everything okay? Marcus nodded automatically. Yeah, but he knew it wasn't. He went backstage again and found Bruno waiting in a private room. Bruno closed the door behind him. Show me. Marcus handed him the photograph. Bruno stared at it for a long time. His face became increasingly serious. I haven't seen this picture in years. Marcus's heart stopped. You know it. Bruno looked up. Not exactly. He pointed toward the television reflection. But I recognized the symbol. Marcus leaned forward. What does it mean? Bruno hésitated. Years ago, before you ever met me, there was a private dance program connected to several independent performers. It wasn't famous. It wasn't public. The people involved called it the Circle. Marcus frowned. The Circle? Yes. What does that have to do with me? I don't know yet. Marcus stared at him. You said you knew the symbol. Bruno nodded. Because someone once tried to recruit me through it. Marcus's eyes widened. Recruit you for what? They wanted performers who could influence people through music and movement. Marcus almost laughed. That sounds insane. It did to me too. What happened? Bruno looked down at the photograph. I walked away. Marcus studied his face. Why? Bruno's voice lowered. Because I realized they weren't interested in art. A heavy silence filled the room. Then what were they interested in? Marcus asked. Bruno looked directly into his eyes. Control. Marcus felt the room become colder. You're saying someone has been watching me since I was a child? I'm saying I don't know. But this photograph proves someone was there. Marcus sat down. His mind raced through old memories. His father's silence. His mother's nervous reactions whenever Marcus asked about his childhood. The strange people who sometimes appeared at performances when he was young. The reason his father had suddenly become terrified of Marcus pursuing dance. My father knows something, Marcus whispered. Bruno nodded. Probably. Marcus stood. I need to talk to him. Not tonight. Why not? Because you're emotional. He's my father. Exactly. Marcus stared at him. Bruno stepped closer. If someone has been hiding something from you for years, you don't confront them without knowing what you're looking for. Marcus clenched his jaw. What if he's in danger? Bruno's expression softened. Then we find out carefully. Marcus looked at the photograph again. I want answers. You'll get them. Promise? Bruno paused. I'll do everything I can. That wasn't the promise Marcus wanted, but it was the truth. They left the room together. Outside, rain had started falling. Marcus stood beneath the awning and watched water race along the pavement. He thought about the boy in the photograph. 7 years old, barefoot, smiling, dancing without fear. He wondered when that boy had disappeared. Maybe he hadn't disappeared at all. Maybe Marcus had simply spent years burying him beneath expectations. His phone buzzed. His father. Marcus answered. Dad. His father's voice sounded strained. Where are you? At the venue. You need to come home. What? Silence. Dad. Because someone knows. Marcus's heart slammed against his chest. Knows what? His father took a shaky breath. I should have told you years ago. Told me what? That the night you were born wasn't the first time they saw you. Marcus looked at Bruno. Bruno immediately understood something serious had happened. Who? Marcus asked. The people behind the circle. Marcus's face went pale. You knew. I tried to keep you away from them. By telling me to stop dancing? Yes. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. You made me hate myself. His father's voice cracked. I know. You made me think I wasn't good enough. I know. Why didn't you tell me the truth? Because I was afraid they'd come back. Marcus, Bruno is not safe. The words from his mother echoed through the car speakers as the video ended, leaving only the soft hiss of the recording. Marcus stared at the black screen in his hands, unable to breathe properly. Beside him, Bruno remained silent, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Rain continued striking the windshield, each drop catching the passing streetlights before disappearing into darkness. What did she mean? Marcus finally whispered. Bruno did not answer immediately. I don't know. Marcus looked at him. You know more than you're telling me. Bruno slowly pulled the car to the side of the road and turned off the engine. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then Bruno reached into the inside pocket of his jacket and removed a small folded photograph. Your mother contacted me years ago. Marcus froze. What? Before you ever met me. Bruno unfolded the photograph. It showed a younger version of Marcus's mother standing beside a group of dancers in an old studio. Marcus recognized the room immediately. It was the studio where he had taken his first dance lessons. She asked me to watch over you, Bruno continued. Not physically. She knew that would attract attention. She only wanted me to know your name. Marcus's eyes widened. Why? Because she believed you would eventually become involved with the circle without knowing it. Marcus shook his head. That makes no sense. It didn't to me either. Bruno looked down at the photograph. Until tonight. Marcus stared at him. Then why did you suddenly appear behind me when I was dancing to Finesse? Bruno smiled funny. Because I was supposed to meet your mother that night. Marcus's heart stopped. You were going to meet my mother? Yes. But she wasn't there. Exactly. The silence that followed felt heavier than the rain. Marcus replayed the memory in his head. The music. The crowd. His dancing. Bruno appearing behind him. The impossible timing. He had believed it was an accident. Maybe it wasn't. She wanted you to find me, Bruno said. And she knew the easiest way to make you trust me was through music. Marcus closed his eyes. So none of this was random. The meeting wasn't. Bruno looked at him. But what happened afterward was. Marcus opened his eyes. What do we do now? Bruno started the car again. Find your mother. They drove through the city until they reached an abandoned theater on the edge of town. Marcus stared at the broken sign above the entrance. Why are we here? Bruno said, Because your father left something here. Inside, the theater smelled of dust, wet wood, and old velvet. Moonlight slipped through holes in the ceiling, illuminating rows of empty seats. Marcus followed Bruno backstage. Behind a torn curtain was a small wooden door. Bruno opened it with a key. Inside was a narrow room containing an old tape recorder, several boxes, and a single photograph of Marcus as a child. Marcus approached the recorder. What is this? Bruno pressed play. Static filled the room. Then Marcus heard his father's voice. If you're listening to this, it means I failed to keep you away from them. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. His father's voice continued. The circle was never simply a group of artists. They believed music could influence emotion, memory, and behavior. They studied performers. They watched children who showed unusual responses to rhythm. Marcus was one of them. Marcus covered his mouth. No, the recording continued. Your mother discovered what they were doing. She tried to expose them. They threatened our family. I became afraid. Instead of protecting Marcus by telling him the truth, I tried to destroy the thing they were interested in, his confidence. Marcus closed his eyes. The realization hurt more than anger. His father had not hated his dancing. He had been terrified of it. I know what I did was wrong, his father's recording said. But I believe making Marcus hate dance would make them lose interest. A pause followed. I was wrong. Marcus turned away. Bruno remained beside him. The recording continued. There is one final recording. It contains proof of everything. Your mother knows where it is. If they find it first, they will erase every trace of the circle. The tape ended. Marcus stared at the machine. Where's my mother? Bruno looked toward the door. We have one place left. They drove to the old dance studio where Marcus had begun dancing as a child. The building looked abandoned. The windows were dark. Marcus pushed open the door. Dust floated through the air. His old mirror still covered one wall. For a moment he saw himself as a child again, spinning clumsily across the floor while his mother laughed. Then he heard a voice. Marcus! He turned. His mother stepped out from behind the curtain. She looked exhausted, frightened, but alive. Marcus ran toward her. They embraced tightly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry." Marcus held her. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I thought silence would protect you." "It didn't." She nodded through tears. "I know." Bruno stood a few feet away. Marcus's mother looked at him. "You came." Bruno nodded. "You told me to." She smiled sadly. "Thank you." Then a loud crash came from outside. Everyone froze. Marcus's mother whispered, "They're here." The lights went out. A shadow moved across the windows. Bruno immediately stepped between Marcus and the door. "Stay behind me." Marcus shook his head. "No." Bruno looked at him. "Marcus, I'm tired of hiding." His mother stared at him. "You don't understand." "I understand enough." Marcus walked toward the center of the studio. The old wooden floor creaked beneath his feet. "They spent years trying to make me afraid of dancing." He looked at Bruno. "Maybe that's why they were afraid of it." Bruno smiled. "Now you're thinking." The door burst open. Several figures entered. The man from the venue stood in front. He looked at Marcus calmly. "You finally remembered." Marcus stared at him. "I don't remember you." "You don't need to." The man raised a small recording device. "Your mother does." Marcus looked at her. She was trembling. "His name is Adrian," she whispered. "He was one of them." Adrian smiled. One of the few who understood what Marcus could become. Marcus frowned. "I'm a dancer." "Exactly." Adrian stepped closer. "And music has always been more powerful than people realize." Marcus shook his head. "You wanted to control people. We wanted to understand them. That's not the same thing." "Perhaps not." Adrian glanced at Bruno. "You should have stayed away." Bruno stepped forward. "And you should have stopped watching children." Adrian's expression hardened. "You know nothing about what we were trying to accomplish." "I know enough." The tension inside the studio became unbearable. Marcus looked toward the old sound system. An idea appeared in his mind. He remembered his father's recording. The circle studied emotion through music. They believed rhythm could influence people. Marcus understood something they had forgotten. Music could also free people. He walked toward the speakers. Adrian noticed. "What are you doing?" Marcus smiled faintly. "Dancing." He pressed the old system's power button. Nothing happened. He tried again. A low hum emerged. The speakers crackled. Then music filled the studio. Not loud, not dramatic, just a simple rhythm. Marcus began moving. Adrian stared at him. "Stop." Marcus continued. His movements were slow at first, then stronger. He danced through the fear, through the anger, through the years of doubt. His mother began crying. Bruno watched silently. Marcus wasn't performing for anyone anymore. He was reclaiming something that had been stolen from him. One by one, the people in the room lowered their weapons and stopped moving. The rhythm had changed the atmosphere completely. It wasn't control. It was connection. Marcus looked at Adrian. "You spent your whole life trying to control what music does to people." He stepped closer. "You never understood that people choose what music means to them." Adrian stared at him. For the first time, uncertainty appeared in his eyes. Outside, police sirens approached. Bruno had contacted authorities before entering the building. Adrian looked toward the door. "You think this changes anything?" Marcus answered quietly. "It changes me." The police entered. The people connected to the circle were taken away. Adrian was the last to leave. Before he disappeared through the doorway, he looked at Marcus. "You'll never know everything." Marcus nodded. "Maybe." Adrian smiled strangely. "That's what makes you dangerous." Then he was gone. Dawn arrived slowly. The sky turned pale orange above the old studio. Marcus sat on the floor beside his mother. Bruno stood near the window, watching the city wake up. "Is it over?" Marcus asked. Bruno considered the question. "The circle's operation is over." Marcus looked at him. "But there will always be people who try to control things they don't understand." Marcus smiled. "Then I guess we'll keep dancing." Bruno looked. "I guess we will." His mother reached for Marcus's hand. "Your father would have been proud." Marcus looked down. His father's disappearance still hurt. They had eventually found him safe in a nearby town, shaken but alive. He had been hiding because he feared the circle would use him to reach Marcus. Marcus knew forgiveness would take time, but for the first time, he was willing to begin. Weeks later, Marcus returned to the stage. The crowd was enormous. The lights were brighter than ever, but he wasn't nervous. When